Though the ground underneath you is cursed and stained, your planting and reaping are never the same. Your labor is not in vain. Your labor is not unknown. Though the rocks they cry out and the sea it may roam, the place of your toil may not seem like a home, but your labor is not unknown. For I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, for I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. The vineyards you plant will bear fruit. The fields will sing out and rejoice with the truth. For all that is old will at last be made new. The vineyards you plant will bear fruit. I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, for I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. The houses you labor to build will finally with laughter and joy be filled. The serpent that hurts and destroys shall be killed, and all that is broken be healed. I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, for I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, for I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. Your labor is not in vain. Though the ground underneath you is cursed and stained, your planting and reaping are never the same. Your labor is not in vain. Your labor is not unknown. Though the rocks they cry out and the sea it may roam, the place of your toil may not seem like home, but your labor is not unknown. I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I am with you, I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. The vineyards you plant will bear fruit. The fields will sing out and rejoice with the truth. For all that is old will at last be made new. The vineyards you plant will bear fruit. For I am with you. I am with you. I am with you. I am with you. For I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. For I am with you. I am with you. I am with you. I am with you. For I have called you by name. Your labor is not in vain. Your labor is not in vain. So beautiful.
So each week, as we've been heading towards our major transitions that are coming this fall, we've had members of the imagination team share what this experience has been like for them, and today Alex is going to do. I'll just say too, next week Brad Jerzak's speaking, and since the module program will be going on at the university, Mark Shelsky, who was here in the spring and led worship for us beautifully, is going to do that again next week, and he's going to use a band from here to help, I think. And then the week after that, we're having kind of a celebration. It'll be Thanksgiving Day in Canada, but it'll also be Thanksgiving for 30 years, for the 30th birthday of the church. It'll be the 30th anniversary of our church.
Thanks, Peter. All right, so I'm on the imagination team. And basically what I did was I kind of put it into the different phases for me. The beginning being the adventurous part, being offered to join this group by Walter. I remember actually going to meet Walter and talk about it, and I already had detailed notes about a like 25-point plan of, hey, what about these ideas? Which is just my style. The group knew that. But one of the great things about doing a process like this is that the ideas you have at the beginning, you look back and you're like, wow, this is nothing compared to what actually came out of the process. So getting together, I think it was a really interesting process of kind of seeing where everybody's at with church, and then kind of get a sense of where do people want to go with this. I think there was a bit of, it kind of had a bit of a lull right at the beginning, and this would be my own personal experience, maybe not for others, but I think we had a bit of a challenge where we started to ask pretty fundamental questions after we were kind of commissioned to imagine a new church. What are we really supposed to be doing? Does this actually matter? Will just be like some nice report that sits on a shelf? Are we the right people? There's questions of our racial diversity. Are we actually, these are actually serious questions, and I think at a certain point, we started to ask questions related to, is this going to work? And frankly, at a certain point, I thought I might have to leave the group. And I was sitting, we were in Jess's dining room, and I was like, I might have to leave the group. I don't know. So it was a bit of a low point, I think, kind of right near probably the first part. And we kind of broke it into, I think the word trimesters kind of emerged. I think that first trimester was difficult for me. It might have just been me, so just keep in mind. I think the inflection point and where things started to turn was when we started to just listen to people. When we did those interviews, I think that came up with other people, that all of a sudden we started talking to others, not just the group, and not just trying to figure out where we're going as a group, where we really had ultimate freedom. It was a bit daunting. But when we started talking to people, we started to hear things that were, oh, yes, this is an issue. Or, oh, we're all talking about the same thing. And also, we all have really different values too. It was hopeful, weirdly. And I think one of the things that also helped was when we started to do the blue sky thing. When we took some of the things we were hearing and put it onto paper, and some of our own thoughts, and we just blue sky. No constraints really, no considerations of finances or human capacity. What would be the ideal church or community? And that's an important distinction too. When it came to the finances piece, this is something that intrigued me quite a lot. I'm going to talk about that in a moment after, but thinking about the building as a community space, not just a place where we do these services on Sunday, but a place for the community. This exists in St. Stephen, Victoria Street. You know, the idea of Victoria Street Center has been floated around a lot. There's something to that. When we started to think about putting together a proposal, I think the sense of it was that we were just feeling hopeful, humble, trusting, and kind of at peace. That's at least how I felt. And just did a lot of good work putting that together. That was amazing. At a certain point, really, I wasn't doing 100% as a committee member, I'll be honest, because I am a busy guy, but being part of it, at least for the parts I was in terms of the proposal and that stage, it was good. And I think that's kind of amazing thinking about that group from the beginning till that point, because around that point we were all, yep, this is it. And I don't think we could have done that had we not really listened so actively to this community. Because if we feel quite at peace, I think, with what was proposed. In terms of where we came, I think, and going back to like my original, crazy detailed plan of like, here's what we could do. It's really neat because I think one of the things that I think is really important with this proposal is this idea of this facilitator concept. And it changes a lot, more than maybe you think, right at the first glance. One of the concepts I think that has emerged out of listening to people is that we kind of been like, our church has always been like this. Peter, Marion, Walter, Carol, the leadership team have all been very flat in terms of how this place is led, and it's been super approachable in that regard, like very much so. But I think what we're trying to do with this is formalize that a little bit more, so that the idea that the leaders are becoming truly facilitators, to facilitate others, to help others in the things they want to do in this place. And calling people forth to do it. Because a lot of times people have great ideas, they're like, I just don't have the time or energy, but a facilitator is someone who can help bring that together. There's pieces you might not have energy for, but there's others who might. So that's the idea. Listening to so many people, we really understood there's a lot of people want to do things. And if they could be brought together, then that probably would work. And I guess when I'm going back to like why I even did this, I kind of see the church across North America as being under pretty significant pressure. I think it's God. I think God is undoing the foundations of Christianity in North America. We've made some mistakes. let's say the royal we of Christianity. So I think the opportunity to fundamentally rethink how a church could work, I couldn't give that up. That's amazing. And where I was thinking at the time, and just again, this is my original thinking, was that I think we're going through such turbulent times, and I think the future is going to be bumpy. That a church in a time like this might be able to be the light in the darkness, might be able to be the salt and light that we're supposed to be. Because I think where people are closing their doors and help is hard to find, in times of difficulty, this is where you can truly, be who we're supposed to be. So I think that there's lots of things we could be to be a bigger tent community. So people show up to services. That's part of us. People show up to things that are happening in this building. I think that's also part of us. I think the idea of opening up the tent and allowing more in is part of what this is about, in my view, and this is what's been so encouraging because I've been hearing that through this process. Back to finances. Just a couple pieces there. So one thing about a church is a church typically functions on donations. There's very few other ways to run a church. Legally, actually, you can't be a charity and run a for-profit business at the same time. But there are other ways you can raise money, and so we've been thinking about that as part of this as well. So if we're offering community programming here that are providing real services and benefits to people, then maybe there's ways we could charge for those things. And this is something which I kind of want to put some more thoughts together on with Kendall and maybe some others. We're really looking for input on this because the church will need to continue to need donations. It is how churches operate and just the way things go. But we've been through some very difficult years with COVID, and I think you guys all knew the call to help in April. The church is not going to be able to get through this without people coming on board. And I think if we look at that call to help, it didn't really push us where we needed to go. So I think despite saying that donations are so integral, we also need to think more than that. So I'm not saying don't donate, please donate to the church. But we do need to think broader too. And that's all I'm saying is that I think one of the exciting parts about this new transition and what we're thinking about and all the different opportunities is that we really do need to think about sustainability, almost like it's a social enterprise, as well as a church, as well as a community center. And I think you can do all those things well, and they can be harmonious. So that pretty much covers it, I think. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, that was really good.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
And I just also want to say to Peter Maryland, I'm just so amazed what you guys have done for this place. Like, you poured your life into this place. And, when you start thinking about a church and thinking about, well, how could this be different? And in so many ways, you guys have done such an amazing job and so different as well. So I don't want to say that in any way that it's trying to undo any legacy or anything you guys have put in place. That, in my view, I think this is building on the best things you guys have done. So thank you.
I actually love that. I love the idea of anchored with wings, that we sometimes use that expression. And that hopefully holding on to good things from the past, but always being free to have new thoughts. So now Jess is going to speak to us today about new thoughts.
Good morning. So good. Thanks, Alex. That was beautiful, beautifully said. I was thinking of that song, Your Labor is Not in Vain, too. I just felt like that was such a good song to have sung today. And like, not to be over the top, but the vineyard that shall bear fruit has some significant meaning. So that's true for me. And today I'm going to talk about this title behind me, Put Your Faith in Love. When I started to think about talking today, this is the only thing that would come to me, this little sentence. And I felt resistant of that because it sounds pretty preachy, I think. But it's just the sentence that's been kind of a continuous whisper for me this month, and especially I think in relation to the imagination team and the proposal and looking toward the future of this service in particular, and stepping into some things that are new for me. I just keep hearing this sentence, put your faith in love. So I'm going to try to pull that apart a bit today and just explain what it's meaning to me right now. So years ago, when Jaden was a baby, I was invited to attend a little Anglican church in an evening service that met in downtown Winnipeg. It's called St. Benedict's Table. If you ever visit Winnipeg and you like liturgical churches, you should definitely check it out. This is the church where I first encountered things like liturgical worship and lectionary readings and the Eucharist served weekly with real wine even. But I was in the heat of early mothering and deconstruction. My body was tired and my faith was really fragile. But there was something about the rhythm of this service that reached right into the part of my soul that most needed to be cared for, to be comforted, and to be soothed. So I've often referred to the church as a mother in my life, but this church in particular provided me with something strong and reliable to lean into each week. And it was just strange enough to me that I could get around or set aside some of the religious baggage or the triggers that I had at the time from coming out of evangelicalism. And I was able to enter into the mystery of what was offered there. So I loved the rituals, the incense and the bells and the standing and sitting and kneeling and the old and the new blending of words that made up a modern liturgy, kind of like we do here too. I love the intimacy of a priest wiping the rim of a communion cup and then handing it to you and watching you drink from it with so much tenderness. And then just as surely as they had welcomed you in, you were sent out and pushed into the world again with a blessing at your back. I had a favorite part of this service. I didn't grab this, sorry, but no, yeah. I had a favorite part of the service. Just before serving communion, the priest would hold the bread and say, "This is the body of Christ. Behold what you are, become what you receive." I've always had mixed feelings about those words, if I'm honest, and I really want to be honest with you. I was raised in a theology that told me that I was really, 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 really bad, dirty, and that I needed to be washed in the blood of Jesus to be clean and acceptable before God. So it makes sense that my first response to the words, "Behold what you are," in a religious context would trigger shame. But while that was true, there was something about this invitation that I found enticing, and when I'd participate in it, when I'd consent to the ritual of beholding myself as honestly as I could before God, and then receiving communion as a way of becoming, it opened something up in me. And I wanted to come back week after week just for that. So I know I'm not the only person to struggle to receive the love that's being offered at times like this. To resist love, true unconditional love, is a common part of the human experience. And I wish I could tell you I've cracked the code on this, but I haven't. I just know that it's true for me and that I'm not an exception. We are human, and we are so often afraid of our humanness. Did that work? No.
Is it on?
No. There we go. This is Peter shared this poem a lot here. And it's been on my mind this week as I thought about communion and this struggle in my life to receive love. I think this demonstrates that struggle so well. It's a poem by George Herbert, an English poet and priest from the 17th century. I'm just going to read it and then talk about it a little bit. You can read along or just follow along. Okay. It says, "Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. But quick-eyed love, observing me grow slack, from my first entrance in drew nearer to me, sweetly questioning if I lacked anything. A guest, I answered, worthy to be here. Love said, you shall be he. I, the unkind, ungrateful, ah, my dear, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I? Truth, Lord, but I have marred them. Let my shame go where it doth deserve. And know you not, says love, who bore the blame. My dear, then I will serve. You must sit down, says love, and taste my meat. So I did sit and eat. I love how this poem demonstrates our resistance and love's persistence. I don't love the shame-based language around guilt and sin, but it really was the common understanding of this time, and it's what most of us inherited too. But even with all of that, poems like this exist that reveal an understanding or an experience that love is trying to reach us on a different plane. You must sit down, says love, and taste my meat. So I love Scott Erickson's art, and we even have some new art over here of his. He's creating modern icons, and icons have been used throughout religious history. They are often considered to be a part of the liturgy itself, contributing to the worship that was happening at the time. So this icon that I have up here is called SelfLove, and Scott shared it on Instagram recently with this quote by Khalil Gibran, which says, "And God said, love your enemy, and I obeyed him and loved myself." Rachel talked about her process on the imagination team last week, and one of the things she shared during that time was a kind of commitment she made inside herself to show up in her entirety. Not just presenting what some might consider to be the best parts of herself, as we often do, but all of herself, her doubt, her skepticism, her hope, her biases, all of it as she really is. And this was definitely one of the gifts of this group for me too. At a certain point in the process, I decided to trust these people with parts of myself I'd kept close. And truthfully, I've been afraid of a lot of things in my life. And that fear has kept me from beholding myself and from becoming myself. So, I thought we could take a minute just to look deeply at this image together with these words, "Behold what you are," alongside it. And if you want, you can place your hand on your heart or across your shoulders with this image in your mind. And while you do that, consider this question: what does it mean to behold what or who I am in a loving way? So let's just take 1 minute of silence. We can do that together. What does it mean to behold what or who I am in a loving way? Does anyone want to share anything right now? You're welcome to, if you do.
Noticed that my brain was out. It's like, I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds and then I was like, nope. You know, and not on purpose, like not even like this is dumb, I don't want to do this. Like I'm a counselor, I love this stuff. It's just like it's hard. Like that's hard.
Yeah. That's good, thank you. Yeah. The resistance became apparent. Yeah.
I was thinking just about like what you said, the resistance becomes apparent, but how your brain goes. But also we can't behold ourselves in everything, so we have to think almost of a moment or something. And I was thinking about staying with you guys and how I am a person that barges in. Jessica, where are you? You know, like. But I'm also a person who's present, and those are the two sides of that part of me. This loud, overbearing person. But somebody who's also there.
And I love that about you.
One of the things that, I don't know if you know, back when you did a poem a long time ago, reading here and I did music with you, and one of the pieces that was sort of central to that was the necessary light and darkness, which is the thing that comes out of, that's a Richard Gore thing, I didn't make that up. But it felt to me when I was looking at this is what this was, like both what you consider the light and the dark in yourself, like embracing each other. And it was sort of almost like another version of this. My thinking was not just behold what you are, but embrace who you are. And this idea, and also made me think about everything, the song. Speaking of again, which is the thing I struggle with, and where there's sort of this dialogue, implied dialogue, that says, you love my dark with one of the lines. And anyway, just realizing that somehow you have to, in order for this to kind of come together, to me anyway, you have to be prepared to embrace both the light and the dark is you.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. what is it called by Richard Rohr? The necessary,
The necessary light and darkness.
the necessary light in the darkness.
Yeah, the necessary light and darkness.
And darkness.
You know, I think we all,
Mhm.
what Kathleen goes is like, yeah, I understand the necessary light, but darkness is actually necessary.
Yeah.
That's the thing
Yeah.
that baked my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Something that came to me is how much a process it is to be able to behold
Mm.
yourself. And so the thing that first rose up for me was grief.
Mm.
And I think that's a departure from trying to stuff it down or make it something different than it is,
Mm.
which has been sort of a habitual pattern for me and probably for other people.
Mm.
But to allow that grief to surface and just be present to that,
Mm.
for me is the first step in that work, you know.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, becoming present to yourself in a way. Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
from a spiritual sense, that, and maybe that's a historical piece of us, but so quickly go to comparison and comparison to the standard,
Mm.
and as you don't measure up, and think of all of your failings, and where you have it.
Mm.
You have it.
Mm.
I think that unfortunately jumps to
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. Mhm.
What was that question again?
What does it mean to behold what or who I am in a loving way? I think, did I have it on there?
Pretty close. I think my first thought immediately went to, just the way that God sees me.
Mm.
And I think when I just closed my eyes, I just kind of, it was almost like God was rifling through all the parts of my body, being like, look at all this goodness. This is so good. This is good. This is great. And even the things that I felt self-conscious about,
Mhm.
my skin gets irritated. It's like, well, we all get irritated. And I even love you when you're irritated.
Yeah.
And that's definitely, I think that in loving myself, I've learned how to do that from what knows me best.
I love that. I love how it's like God isn't as judgmental as we are.
I was just going to add to that very thing, that I tend to think that's where we go is the judgmental part, but
Yeah.
we quickly forget the grace part.
Yeah.
And the love part.
Yeah. That's good.
I was
Mhm.
thinking about, I guess there's different ways that love can look like for yourself. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, and it depends on people's personality, but for me, I think it's pretty easy it's become easier for me to be compassionate for myself.
Mhm.
And that's one way of doing that, and it can be kind of a compassionate or comforting way. But then I was also thinking, I also really need to behold myself in an encouraging, motivating way as well.
Mm. Yeah.
That has a place,
Mm.
but then I think, there's other ways to show that love to yourself. And I guess I've never really thought about that inner voice it makes sense, but that inner voice needing to actually approach different situations with different kinds of love.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
maybe it's, if your default is often one approach, it might have a good time and a good place, but sometimes you maybe need to cultivate another approach in yourself
Mhm.
in another situation.
Yeah. opens up so many possibilities. Yeah. For me, if everyone has spoken who really is just wanting to. Okay. For me, I noticed that this image placed together with these words shifts my attention away from that shame response that I so often am prone to. And it invites me into something much more tender than that. I think that's what what the image facilitates for me is this tenderness to behold myself, maybe with more love than I would be naturally inclined to on my own. Self-love has not come easy to me, and over the last few years in particular, it's been really difficult. So my mind was stuck in some pretty deep ruts, and those grooves continue to be the path of least resistance a lot of the time. When I first came here to SSU and to the church, I think I would describe myself as just like a bundle of shame. It's just kind of spilling out of me. And that was 6 years ago now. One of the things that's happened over the last 6 years is that love, or God, has fearfully and wonderfully revealed myself to myself. And even though I've been afraid of this revealing, I've let it come. And I've slowly found the courage to share what I've discovered with the people in my life. So, is this it? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. You'll see why I'm getting nervous all of a sudden. Just wait. So a significant part of that self-revelation has been connected to understanding and accepting my own sexuality. So I'm bisexual, and every time I say that, it's an act of faith. And so this week, the God of my understanding whispered to me, put your faith in love. I thought that before I could do this, I needed to feel less afraid, but that feeling just never came. So I feel like, here. So one reason that might be is fear and courage are so completely intertwined. I like this description of courage by Padraig Tuma, describing a friend. He writes, when we are in a moment of courage, whether we call that God's voice or indigenous bravery, it is the body that tells us a deep truth. It is the body that speaks to us, and it is from the body that the courage comes. I have a friend, Kelly, and when she speaks courageously, and she speaks courageously often, you can read the truth from her body. Her fingers shake a little bit, and her mouth, while it is shaping strong words, is also shaking with a fear that demonstrates the depth of her courage. Hello to fear. Hello to the courage that comes from the same place as fear. Hello to the truth of the body. So, I do not feel less afraid, but I have noticed that in all the places I thought love might fail, it just hasn't yet. Which brings me to this. Become what you receive. And I have received so much love. At a certain point in this process, both with the imagination team and in doing a lot of my own personal work, I started to understand that when it came to accepting this part of myself, I had gone as far as I could or would go on my own. And I felt an invitation present itself to me that I've struggled to articulate well, but it has something to do with the kind of healing and security that could come through community. If I would just share myself authentically and receive the love I encountered through that. This continues to be the challenge for me, to become more fully myself and to receive the love that comes in and through the Eucharist, which is a mystery that we also call the body of Christ, which is a mystery that we also call you, the church. Amen. Thank you.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing else.
Okay. Goodbye.